Meet Kieran Dodds. Kieran is an award-winning Scottish photographer, known internationally for his research-driven photo series and his portraiture. Kieran's personal work looks at the interplay of environment and culture and the importance of spiritual belief in global conservation. This is what led him to Ethiopia.
My background is in zoology as a conservationist, but I got into photography and I've always been interested in trying to see how human beings can live with the environment in a positive way. And so I was actually looking at Ethiopia because I'd heard about this huge boom in the economy, incredible growth. And when I flew through it a few years ago on the way to Malawi, I just experienced this incredible atmosphere. And so I wanted to see what was happening in Ethiopia. And when I looked at the huge growth in manufacturing and industry, I wondered actually what was the cost to the environment of this amazing growth. And it was while researching that I stumbled upon the church forests, which no one really knew about outside of the scientific literature. And so when I looked on Google Maps, I just found these beautiful, around Lake Tana, beautiful little gems, little islands of green in the sort of agriculture. And this picture, in fact, is from Lake Tana, where there's total protection from cattle and people walking around. And you can see this is the peak forest. This is a lush native forest surrounded by the church. And so this just really starts the story off because it's a story of hope, but it's also a story of danger for the forest because they are under threat. And so I'm interested in showing Ethiopians this story because it's a treasure that belongs to you. But it needs protected, and actually the local people, once they know about the riches, the biological riches, they are doubling up efforts to try and protect the forests.
Ethiopia is one of the fastest growing economies in the world, with an average growth of roughly 10% a year over the last 10 years. The population is growing too. Ethiopia is currently the second most populous country in Africa after Nigeria. 80% of Ethiopia's population are in rural areas, living off the land, placing more pressure on the natural environment. Through his series, Ethiopia, Kieran raises awareness about deforestation and explores the relationship between people and their environments, considering the untapped power of spiritual beliefs in transforming the ecological crisis.
And if we go over here, there's a couple of examples. This one here has no wall around it. And so again, you can see the shape that has been formed is from people ploughing, from cattle moving, just eating at the edges. And it's a slow change, so people don't notice it. It's so slow, but actually in the next 10 years, these forests will probably not be viable unless they're protected. So Dr. Alamaiwase has been protecting them by building these stone walls, conservation walls, which are very low, but they just are enough to stop people in their tracks and say, go no further, this is the forest to protect. And so it's had incredible effects. And so I'm trying to help them to raise the money and raise awareness to build more of these at the most important forests out there, because the difference that will make over time as the population grows will be vast. These are incredibly important. And this picture here, which this is the end of the set that was in this award, and it looks like something terrible. It looks like the forest has been destroyed. But in fact, this is a picture of hope, because with the increase in population, there's been this new church plant to take care of the local people as well. And they have set aside land for the church because they see these churches as requiring the forest. The forest is the clothes of the church, and it gives dignity to the place. And so they've set aside, you can see the dark area, which is the new vegetation, even here, green vegetation coming up. And so if people move quickly to build these small conservation walls, and even to raise awareness, I really believe that these incredible biological treasures can be preserved for future generations. They're so important, not just to Ethiopia, but to the world, because they show the wider world that actually these indigenous, these religious worldviews are so important in the protection of the world. That seems to be a big message we're hearing a lot, is, save the planet, but actually engaging religious communities who have been doing it for centuries anyway. And I think Ethiopia is a brilliant example of many things in the world, but in particular, I feel in conservation, this is a rare story where it is a positive conservation story.
Hierotope, from the ancient Greek for sacred and place, is the study of sacred spaces, examining the relationship between art and altar, architecture and dress within Byzantine churches. The forests around Ethiopian churches have a similar function, which is to create the sacred beyond the physical boundary of the church building.
Why do you think, or what is your finding according to the research that you have conducted, that all churches are surrounded by forests? What is the reason?
It seems to be, as I said there, it's got a dignity to it. So they see the forest as part of the church building, almost. The forest is part of the dignity of the space and the sacredness of the space. So when you enter the churchyard, the forest gives you that sense of approaching the divine. They don't worship the forest, but it points them. It's a picture of this new creation, this Eden. And they are gardens of Eden to the people who have them, which is why I've shot it kind of reflecting the book of Genesis. You've got Genesis 1, which is God up here, transcendent. And I've also got a series of shots on the ground like Genesis 2, so God immanent, walking in the garden. And it's these two things that are held in tension. And so I think it really is something from the biblical understanding of the world, that this forest is a gift. It also is a place of shelter and great beauty for the people.
It is said that in the past 100 years, 90% of Ethiopia's forests were lost through the expansion of land use for agriculture. However, the churches of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church in northern Ethiopia are preserving the forests surrounding their churches by teaming up with scientists and the local community. These ancient canopies are protected as a tenet of faith, and thousands of forest fragments exist across northern Ethiopia. These green islands of biodiversity represent a miniature Garden of Eden to their guardians. One priest described the trees as the clothes of the church. These fragments of forests represent the centre of hope for conservation and future restoration. Churches are being encouraged to build protective stone walls around their forests to save them from damage. Through his extensive work on the church forests of Ethiopia, shot using a drone, Kieran was recently shortlisted for the Sony World Photography Award, Landscape category, for which he gained 3rd place.
I am representing Ethiopia this year, indeed. I want to be Ethiopian, I would love to be, but clearly I'm Scottish. But it's my second home. I'd love to go back and do more on this. And it's an incredible country, and ironically, I've only really been to this area around Lake Tana and Bahar Dar. I spent a number of weeks over a couple of trips. So I've not actually seen all the things that Ethiopia is famous for, but I'm hoping in the next few years this is what Ethiopia will become famous for, the incredible church forests spread across the landscape. There's so many of them, and it's a real treasure of the world.
As you know, our churches are the preservers of our environment in terms of forests, and also we have monastic life. So can you say some words about the monasteries of Ethiopia? These are monasteries in the lake.
Yeah, in the lake there's the monasteries, and these are local churches. Yeah, it really struck me just the depth of history when you're in Ethiopia. And when you're at the monasteries, you feel this connection back centuries through the paintings, the medieval paintings in Lake Tana, but also again in the canopy of the forest, these ancient trees that surround it. So it's a real sense of deep time, and that's what I loved about it. But what I also loved was the people coming into it. It was part of their daily life. They were modern people, they had their phones, they had their suits on, but they were coming into this space, and there's a real sense of generational renewal and a sense of progress, but also continuity from the past. And I think that is what was so special about being in Ethiopia for me.
We caught up with Kieran at the launch of the Sony World Photography Award exhibition at London's iconic Somerset House, where he spoke to us about his experience in Ethiopia and what he hoped people would achieve through his photography.
Ethiopian spirituality is never far away. It's something which just seems to resonate in all parts of life. People are willing and open to speak about it. It is not seen as something that is to be looked down upon, which sometimes in the secular West is becoming that way. So I found it a really liberating place in many respects, just to speak about the deeper questions of life. And everybody, from my assistant who's out there to anyone in the street, they're willing to speak and chat about these things. The takeaway moment I want people to experience from this is just the importance of people's personal beliefs in the global conservation movement. I want them to be inspired by Ethiopia, its natural beauty, but also to go away and think, what can I do in my local area? How can I protect the environment, and how can I connect with different communities and cultures across the world?
Kieran's photos have been showcased in exhibitions and international magazines such as Nature and National Geographic. They are also currently on display at Somerset House until the 6th of May in the Sony World Photography Awards exhibition. Thank you for watching. If you like what you see, please subscribe to our channel by clicking on the button below.